All right, RB, I've got a question from a fellow author here, from Lucy, and Lucy wants to know, I don't have a script, but I do have an award-winning World War II era novel that's published by HarperCollins with a great following. What do I do to get attention by someone who wants to make this into a movie?
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people will come to me and say they have existing IP, and I ask them what the existing IP is, and it's something that they self-publish that has, no audience, and that it doesn't count. It just doesn't. Um, it's very easy for anybody. I don't want to say it's easy for anybody, but anyone could really sit down and write 1,000 words a day, and in 100 days have a very sizable novel, and then go out to people and say I have existing IP. Since you have something published by HarperCollins, that's pretty big. And if it has as big a following as you have, I would ask, I guess my first question would be asking, why isn't HarperCollins going to Hollywood to try to get you a deal? Because usually if a publishing house has a strong book in their stable, the way that they sell more books at that point is to get a movie. And so that's the first thing, is I would ask your agent, because I'm assuming you have an agent if you landed at HarperCollins, how can you go about doing that? The second thing I might suggest doing is there are people out there, and again, you probably want to Google this, but there are agents out there that specialize in this thing, taking existing IP and bringing it, especially books, and bringing it to various production companies. I mean, every agent in town does this. I mean, every agent's looking for the next big thing, but there are people that are kind of specialized in this area. Now, a lot of the people that are specialized in this area usually find things when they're in the galley stage, or when the book's being written, or when they're in the galley stage. So they're usually way ahead of where you're at. They find these things very, very early, and when the concept is young, and they go and they bring them around town, so that there's a deal in place sometimes before the book ever gets published. In this particular case, I would say that you want to find some. First of all, I would certainly, like I said, go to your agency and go to the publishing house and find out what they could do. That would be my first stop. My second stop, there are also, this is the type of case where you might be able to call up one of the big agencies and say, look, I have to, but you got to make sure you have the proof, the social proof. When you say a decent following, you're going to have to define to them what a decent following is. How many units have you sold? How many, do you have a website? Do you have a mailing list? Do you have, any sort of fan club? What do you have that is extra value for them to sit there and go, wow, there really is a big built-in audience for this thing. We'd like to move on it. This is not an insult to you in any way, shape, or form, nor am I saying that this is you. What I'm saying is that every time that something happens in this business, or every time the wind shifts, everybody wants to jump in, right? So, existing IP has become this thing now over the last 8 to 10 years, where everything the studios are doing, they're doing on existing IP. So people hear this and they hear existing IP, existing IP, existing IP, and then everybody is running to, their local newspaper and ripping out articles going like, look at this article, make a great movie, or look, and I'm not saying that you have a book, but I'm saying that even with self-publishing, or even with books that have been published that didn't do very well, they're like, oh my God, and they run. That causes the wall to get higher, because the people that make those decisions build the wall higher. And to get over that wall, you need to bring even more value and more value. Think about the value you're bringing as the rope that, will help you get over that wall, so to speak. To repel you up the wall, whatever the hell. It's a terrible metaphor, but you get where I'm coming from. So the more value you can bring, the better. And I would say that if you do really have this following, then I would be aggressive in maybe trying to call the agencies and say, look, this is what I have, and let's get a meeting. If you have an agent, they should do that for you. The publishing house should do that for you. So that's my advice. That's my advice there.
Great advice. And there's also, we work with an executive. Her name is Lane Schefter Bishop, and she actually excels on book to screen. She's the president of a company called Vast Entertainment.